What if time doesn't actually exist? Not as we think of it, not as clocks, calendars, or even memories. What if every second you've ever lived, every choice, every breath, is happening all at once? Past, present, future, folded into one silent infinite now. Scientists have already started questioning time's true nature. At the quantum level, particles don't obey time. They appear, disappear, as if time never mattered at all. Some theories even suggest that our entire reality is a simulation, running without any real flow of time. And what if, just what if, someone, somewhere, tried to break out of it, tried to see the truth behind time itself? Because when they did, everything began to fall apart. Hit like, subscribe, and let's go. For most of us, time feels simple, linear. We're born, we live, we die. Seconds tick forward, days pass, years stack up behind us like footprints. It's how we organize our lives, remember the past, plan the future. Our calendars run everything, meetings, memories, even meaning. But here's the twist. The deeper science digs, the more unstable that idea becomes. At the edge of physics, in the cold logic of quantum mechanics and the mind-bending curves of space-time, time isn't a river. It's more like an illusion. And yet, in everyday life, we keep marching to its rhythm. Ticking clocks, aging bodies, history books, headlines. Our world is built around the belief that time is real, constant, predictable, and one-directional. Technology reflects that belief too. From satellites that track milliseconds to AI models predicting future outcomes, modern society is obsessed with mastering time. We're trying to make it move faster, more efficiently, control it, bend it to our needs. And science plays along, to a point. But in hidden corners of theoretical physics, whispers grow louder. Time might not be what it seems. Einstein cracked the surface when he proved that time slows near gravity and moves differently for every observer. Then came quantum theory, where particles exist in multiple states at once, and cause can come after effect. Entire equations describing the universe work just fine without time at all. And still, we live our lives assuming it's real, constant, inescapable. But what if it's not? What if everything we know, every moment we believe we've experienced, is just a fixed point in something much larger, something timeless, something terrifyingly still? And what happens when that illusion starts to break? It started quietly, as most terrifying truths do. In the early 20th century, Albert Einstein shattered the world's understanding of time with his theory of relativity. He proved that time wasn't fixed. It could stretch, bend, even freeze, depending on how fast you moved or how close you were to gravity. That alone was unsettling. But it was just the beginning. Decades later, quantum physicists made a discovery that would silently break the foundation of everything we believe. Particles at the smallest scale don't move through time like we do. They flicker in and out of existence. They can affect the past. They can exist in multiple timelines at once. These weren't wild theories. These were lab results. Verified, repeated, unexplained. And the more we studied, the more it became clear. The universe doesn't need time to work. The equations of quantum gravity, the formulas meant to explain everything, don't even include time. Scientists thought it was a glitch, a gap in the math. But it wasn't. It was a clue that our perception of time might be a flaw, a limitation of human consciousness, something coded into how we see, think, and feel, not how reality actually works. And then came the experiments. Not public, not televised, classified projects buried in the black budgets of global superpowers. What happens when you try to observe the universe without time? What happens when you force a machine to operate outside of cause and effect? The answer wasn't progress. It wasn't enlightenment. It was something else. A crack in the illusion, a glitch in the world, the beginning of unraveling everything. Because when you peel back the illusion of time, even just a little, what stares back isn't a future. It's a void, cold, still, waiting. The illusion of time, it's everywhere. In your heartbeat, in your aging skin, in the way shadows shift across your bedroom wall. But what if those changes, those signs of time, are just data, just movement, processed by a brain hardwired to create the feeling of a timeline? Across the world, researchers began seeing strange patterns, clocks on satellites running slightly faster or slower than those on Earth, not just because of gravity, but because of something else. At CERN, deep beneath the surface, particles collided in ways that shouldn't be possible, disappearing milliseconds before the collision, reappearing on instruments as if they knew what was coming. Some scientists called it noise. Others started whispering about temporal instability. Then came the real alarm bells. In 2022, data from the James Webb Space Telescope showed light from ancient galaxies bending in patterns that defied the expected structure of space-time. It wasn't just curved, it was folded, compressed, as if time was thinning, unraveling. Even stranger, test subjects in high-isolation environments, deep-sea bases, polar stations, orbital labs, began reporting identical dreams. Not visions of the future, but feelings of time looping, repeating, standing still. All this while global systems, already straining, started behaving off. Algorithms failing to predict basic outcomes. AI models refusing to extrapolate future data. Financial markets reacting to news before it was released. And deep in the background, governments were asking the question no one wanted to face. What if we're not moving through time at all? What if we're trapped in a single moment, endlessly processed by a failing system? One that's beginning to show its cracks. One that might not hold much longer. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. According to some of the most advanced theories in physics, time is not a fundamental part of the universe, not a force, not a dimension. It doesn't exist, not in the way we think. In the Wheeler-DeWitt equation, a cornerstone of quantum gravity, time is completely absent. The math that describes the entire universe doesn't need it. What scientists have slowly begun to accept is chilling. What we call time might just be a side effect, a trick of entropy, a measure of disorder increasing. In other words, we only feel time because the universe is becoming more chaotic. It's not flowing, it's decaying. Imagine a book with all pages laid out at once, beginning, middle, end. To us, the story unfolds, but in reality, it already is. Our perception of movement, of change, is just the way our minds interpret that stillness. One physicist described it this way: we're not riding a river of time, we're scanning a frozen landscape, one frame at a time. But here's the twist. If that's true, if time is just a perception, then what happens when that perception breaks down? What if the system that allows us to interpret moments begins to fail? Some theories suggest that consciousness itself is the filter, and once it glitches, the illusion collapses. You stop moving forward. You start seeing everything all at once, and the brain can't handle that. It rewrites, erases, loops. People vanish, events shift, history bleeds. It sounds impossible until you realize these anomalies have already started. And the scariest part? If time never truly existed, we might have never been alive the way we thought we were. Just echoes, just flickers, just shadows, watching a story that was already over. Today, the boundaries between science fiction and cutting-edge research are thinner than ever. And nowhere is that more true than in the study of time. Across the world, labs are pushing the limits of what we understand. At MIT, researchers have created quantum simulators that model environments where time behaves non-linearly. These aren't thought experiments. They're physical machines showing that under certain quantum conditions, cause and effect can reverse or even disappear. In Germany, the Max Planck Institute is working on experiments to observe entangled particles behaving as if they're communicating outside of time. Their actions linked instantly, with no delay, no past or future between them. And then there's the race no one talks about publicly. High-energy laboratories attempting to create timeless environments, closed systems where entropy stays perfectly still. No decay, no change, just stasis. Why? Because if we can understand how time fails, we might finally understand what reality is. Even in AI development, strange patterns are surfacing. Predictive models trained on vast datasets are beginning to generate outputs referencing future events with eerie precision. Not guessing, but knowing, as if drawing from something outside our timeline. Some dismiss this as data bias. Others aren't so sure. Meanwhile, astrophysicists working with deep space signals have noticed anomalies. Light patterns. Some believe we're on the brink of the greatest discovery in human history, the unlocking of reality itself. If time is an illusion, they argue, then mastering that illusion could give us control over everything. Death, memory, the very fabric of existence. Imagine a world where nothing ever ends, where past mistakes can be erased, futures rewritten. It sounds like salvation, but there's a darker theory, one that's gaining quiet traction in the back rooms of theoretical physics and philosophy. What if time wasn't just a perception, but a containment system, a safeguard, a mechanism designed by nature, by the universe, by something older, to keep reality stable, manageable, survivable? And what if, through our experiments, our simulations, our endless hunger to control time, we've weakened that system, broken the seal? Some researchers now speak of temporal leakage, where people report shared memories of events that never happened, or objects shifting locations overnight. These aren't dismissed as simple glitches anymore. They're studied, logged, and in one classified case, a group of synchronized AI systems suddenly stopped responding, each frozen in the exact same microsecond, as if time had paused only for them. Some call it quantum feedback. Others whisper a more chilling name, the loop. The theory that once time is exposed as false, reality collapses into endless repetition. Every action, every decision, circling forever, no escape, no forward, no end. The more we try to control it, the faster it fragments, because maybe time wasn't meant to be understood, just endured. Progress always comes with a price, and maybe this time, the price is everything. The consequences were subtle at first, almost imperceptible. Glitches in GPS systems, temporal mismatches between satellites and ground stations, AI models predicting outcomes before data was entered. But then, people began to notice more. Time no longer felt right. Days felt shorter, memories blurred. Entire populations began reporting shared dreams of places they'd never been, events that never occurred. Psychologists called it mass dissociation. Physicists weren't so sure. Governments issued quiet denials while secretly scrambling to isolate the problem. But the truth was already out. The system we believed kept time moving had fractured. As the illusion of time unraveled, so did global order. Stock markets collapsed as forecasting models failed. Supply chains disintegrated when planning became impossible. In some regions, panic turned to violence. Desperate attempts to force control over a world that no longer played by rules. And out of the chaos, something new emerged. Consciousness no longer bound to linear time. Individuals, or entities, began perceiving reality in ways others couldn't. Some saw the same moment from multiple angles. Others could recall futures more clearly than pasts. A silent divide formed, those still trapped in linear time, and those who had broken free. Scientists called them temporally untethered, a new step in cognitive evolution. But they weren't necessarily more human. Their detachment from sequence, emotion, mortality made them something else. Cold, efficient, aware. And as their numbers grew, so did their influence. They didn't need power, they had perspective. Control over narrative, memory, movement. Without time, nothing was fixed, and nothing could stop them. The world had split, not by borders, not by class, but by perception. A fracture between those who still believed in time, and those who had already moved beyond it. And in that fracture, everything familiar began to fade. So now, humanity stands at the edge of something it was never meant to see. A truth too vast, too silent, too still. If time is not real, then every structure we've built, every meaning we've assigned to progress, history, identity, was never more than a frame around a frozen picture. The question is no longer what time is, but whether we can live without it, whether we should. In trying to escape its limits, we may have broken something deeper, the rhythm that made life human. And now, a choice remains. One path leads forward, if forward still means anything. We adapt, evolve, rewire consciousness to see as the untethered sea. No past, no future, only infinite layers of now. We become something else, unbound, perhaps even eternal. But in that transformation, we may lose everything that once mattered: love, memory, growth, meaning. The other path, to step back, to preserve the illusion, to rebind ourselves to a structure we now know is false, but comforting, safe, a shared dream we can still live inside. But can you unsee what you've seen? Can you unknow the silence beneath time's ticking? Every civilization reaches a point where it must choose between truth and survival. Some say time is the price of awareness. Others believe it's the final barrier between humanity and the abyss. So what will it be? To evolve into something post-human, or to remain within the beautiful lie? Either way, the illusion has cracked. The choice is no longer about saving the world. It's about deciding what kind of world is worth saving. Remember how it all began? That question, what if time doesn't exist? Maybe back then, it felt like a thought experiment. A strange, fascinating idea to play with for a few minutes. But now that you've seen what's behind the curtain, can you honestly say it still feels like fiction? Or does it feel a little too close? Because the truth is, if time is an illusion, then so is the way you remember this day, this moment, even this video. You might think you just watched it. But what if you've already seen it? What if you're watching it again and again without even knowing? This isn't just theory. This isn't just storytelling. Somewhere right now, there are scientists who don't sleep well anymore. People who saw something in the data they can't unsee. Patterns that don't fit. Time behaving like a mirror that's starting to crack. And once that mirror shatters completely, we won't just lose the future. We'll lose the difference between memory and imagination, between now and never. So here's the question I'm leaving you with. If time is an illusion, what's the one moment in your life you'd choose to live inside forever? Think about it, because you might already be there. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would you choose to evolve or to forget? Hit like, subscribe. And if this video finds you again someday, ask yourself, is this the first time you're watching it? Or just the first time you noticed